So like Wesley said, my name is Nathan Schleman. I have been with the Belstra Group for the last 15 plus years. I began my career there in the spring of 2001, and most all of my time has been spent at the Cambalot sow farm. My first slide here is a picture of my family. My wife Jessica and I, we have 4 children, twin daughters Harley and Heidi. They are 13 this month. McKenna, who is 10, and Max, who is 2. And this slide is important to me because we do spend all of our time outside of work working on 4-H projects. This is a heifer that my daughters raised and actually won their fair with this summer. So, okay, here is an aerial photo of Cambalot swine breeders. This farm was reconstructed back in 2008. Some of the same buildings are still there, but you can see to the top side of the picture we have a couple of new additions. A little background about Cambalot. It is a 4,200 sow PIC gilt multiplier. It does staff 18 people. Each and every week we make 212 matings, and we hope to farrow about 195 sows. And out of those 195 litters, we then hope to wean 2,300 wean pigs that we'll transport to our customer farm in central Kansas. So, as I was preparing for this presentation, I asked myself 2 questions. What does the audience know about PCIA, and what can I tell them? So I asked some friends of the company, both at PIC and Birchwood Genetics, to kind of give me a little bit of background. And out of the 1 million sows in the PIC database, only about 50% of those report to using PCAI in their sow herds. And then probably a little bit more locally, Birchwood Genetics, they suspect only about 30% of their customers are currently using PCAI. So this is a photo, most likely, of a gilt's reproductive tract. And Jason Slayton helped me kind of put this together. But with traditional AI, up to 30% of the does can be displaced before it actually reaches the oviducts or the site of fertilization. So it could be caught up in the vagina. It could be trapped somewhere in those cervical folds. In our next slide, we actually have the intrauterine rod that has been slipped through the cervix, and you can see that the entire dose does get dumped in right behind the cervix. That doesn't mean that we don't ever experience any run back, but is far less likely. So what can I tell you? So I can tell you a little bit about my own experience with PCAI. We've not been doing it a great deal of time. Since September of 2015 is when we started making some of our first services. Our production manager, Kurt Nagel, and I worked through putting this whole deal together, and we felt it was important to have a little bit of parity segregation. And so if you remember my second slide with the aerial photo of the farm, there was an old barn there that we used to breed everything in, gilts and sows. All of our incoming gilts would come in there and go in 2 center rows, and we would wean all of our sows out of the farrowing house in the outside rows. And so you kind of had technicians going from side to side, back and forth, breeding a hot group of sows and then finding a gilt here or gilt there. And so since we weren't going to use PCA on gilts, we decided that we would restructure and try to develop a little bit of parity segregation. And so now all of our gilts, both maiden and bred, are housed in the old barn, and all of the sows are in a snake in the breeding gestation barn. In addition to that, to kind of enhance the parity segregation look of things, we decided to group our parity ones together coming out of the farrowing house. And the reason why we decided to do that, parity ones are a little less aggressive. And also, when you're using the inner catheters, sometimes they kind of mimic a gilt. You have a little bit of trouble getting it fed through there, and you really have to just kind of take your time. And so we felt that if we kept all those together, we may have better luck. So opportunities. So we really wouldn't go into something if we didn't understand it entirely. So we really wanted to try and improve things. And a lot of what you read or what you might hear people talk about is labor efficiencies. And there are definitely some labor efficiencies with PCAI, but we didn't really try to look at it that way too much. Our overall time spent breeding did not change a whole lot. you know, when we were still breeding sows and gilts in the same building, we would start breeding around 8 in the morning and we'd finish sometime right before lunch, right at noon. Well, that's really about the same time spent today while using PCAI. But one thing I guess we did take advantage of is we would have 5 guys breeding sows, all lined up, 3 boars in a line, and you just kind of keep playing leapfrog. Once you got done servicing this sow, you'd service this one, and so on. Well, now we're able to take that 5th man and utilize him to adjust feed boxes, to provide some therapeutic treatment, various activities that still have to happen throughout the day. And so what we did is we had 2 people that we thought were probably a best fit to breed gilts, and we put those 2 people on breeding gilts. 8 in the morning, you start breeding gilts, and you breed until you're done. And then we took the other 2 remaining technicians, and we had them breed only the sows. So there wasn't any crossover. Our goals and objectives. So Cambalot was already performing pretty well, so we kind of wanted to maintain our current production. Today, Cambalot's fairing rate is right at or right under 90%, 14 total born, and so things are going pretty well. What we really wanted to do, because the way we did handle our gilts, is we wanted to focus on improving the performance of our gilts and parity ones. And I put in this slide here about the psychology of the technician, because gilts really do need to be handled differently. I know that there's some work being done right now on using PCIA on gilts, but we haven't dove into that entirely yet. So we like to think, well, if we go out there to breed gilts, we have this mindset, and if we go out there to breed sows, we have this mindset. And then the ability to feed gilts side by side and to take the necessary time and making that first mating pleasant one. So just to outline and paint a little bit of a mental picture for you guys, the breeding and gestation barn has a capacity of 3,100 sows, all multi-pair sows, and we have 3 technicians who take care of that barn on a daily basis. They'll do the chores, the insemination, the vaccination, the feedback, adjusting feed levels. And then in our smaller gilt barn, that is staffed by 2 technicians that provide the daily care. And they also, like Dr. Wesley Lyons was talking about, gilt acclimation, those same 2 people will, at the end of the day, go out and shore our GDU barn, providing boar exposure. And so we really want to try and draw that line. So the game plan. Following our chores in the morning, we have 1 technician who gets the boar out and starts to perform the heat checking activities for the day. And I feel that this is maybe one of the most important activities done that day. We still have to be able to focus, and we still have to be able to take our time so that we know that we get that done right. Approximately about 90 minutes later, 90 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, the insemination process begins. And like I said, 2 technicians are doing this process. The rods come packaged in 5 rods per package, and so we work in groups of 5. So the 2 technicians will take and prepare 5 sows, clean the vulva with a dry paper towel, insert the outer catheter, and then it's important, I should note, that we don't try to stimulate this sow too much. We want her to kind of be in that refractory period and to be relaxed. And so once those 5 catheters are inserted, the sow is relaxed, we go to start feeding the inner catheter through the cervix. And it's important to be careful when you do this. We don't want to injure that sow. And so once the first technician comes back, he starts to feed that catheter through the cervix. He'll put on the bag of semen, and he'll actually apply a little light pressure. And between the light pressure and the sow, the semen's drawn in, and the mating is complete. At that point in time, the rod can be removed from the sow, and we kind of weave it through the back gate and write the technician number on there. That second technician is right behind him recording the sow ID and the semen ID and so forth on the breeding sheet. Following the service, we re-expose the sows to the boar. We feel like this, with traditional AI, that boar being present post-mating will help kind of lock down that cervix and provide any stimulation that needs to happen to move that semen into the oviducts. And also, we might be a little different than some who are already doing this, but if we find a sow that maybe didn't respond to the boar that morning, that sow will be marked, it's recorded in the guy's notepad, and then following maybe lunch or that afternoon, that sow will then be inseminated at that point. And I kind of feel like that really helps drive down some non-productive days, because if you were to pass this sow at 9 o'clock in the morning and finish breeding at noon, you probably wouldn't find her until the following day. But with having that boar there 2 different times a day, we may have an advantage there. Necessary attributes. My first line item was patience with P1s, because those P1s, they're still growing. Their reproductive tract is a bit smaller, maybe a little bit more immature, so that you don't always have a great deal of success when you're trying to fish that intercatheter through. And if that is the case, what we will do is we'll just kind of abort the mission and we'll breed her traditionally. I think our staff has to have a desire to learn, a desire to change, and to learn new things. We have to understand the biology of the sow and how that works. Line item number 3, a careful approach. So outside of our staff members and our employees, our sows are probably our next greatest asset. So we don't want to go in there ramrodding things. That cervix is soft tissue, and we don't want to injure that. And then finally, I put the ability to plan and to think. One of the things that I thought was really cool about PCAI is because I'm kind of a task-oriented person, so I like to know what we're doing day to day. And so when we go through in the morning and we get a list of sows that are going to be bred, we also make our own gilts, so we have some pure line semen available. We can match that pure line semen up with the higher indexing sows, and we can know how much semen to take out into the barn with us and kind of really kind of feel out our workload. Important to note, so PCAI, in my opinion, will probably not really improve already great performance. So if you're already doing a really good job reproductively, things are going well, you're probably not going to see a great big uptick in your numbers when you use PCAI. And also, PCAI is not a substitute for good management. We still need to do the right things every day. We still need to make sure we're pushing feed to those weaned sows, and we're not breeding gilts before they're old enough or big enough. And so PCAI would not substitute for a good management plan. And then this will be my final slide for the day, and this is my 2-year-old son Max. This picture was taken back around Easter time, I do believe, and I wanted to share a story with everybody because I really didn't know what to put in here, and I didn't want to stand up here and talk about something I didn't know about. But yesterday, when I was trying to put the final touches on this presentation, I was sitting at the kitchen table putting this stuff into PowerPoint, and my son Max has a squirt gun, and he wanted to play with it. And of course, it was raining outside, and that wasn't going to work out. So I asked him to go into the bathroom and just squirt inside the tub. A few minutes later, I hear my daughter Harley say, "Max, what are you doing?" And I walk around the corner and into the bathroom, and he's filling the squirt gun out of the toilet bowl with toilet water. And so the point I guess I'm trying to make is we do need to be diligent about maintaining the freshness of our semen in the semen coolers. Keep an eye on your people, and just don't assume that everything is happening the way that you think it should.